Max for the win. You look, and I obviously mean this with love, like a man who doesn't have a skeleton.
Standard day at the office.
Are you upset with me?
Surprise!
Go on then. How was it?
It was a great weekend. I know you're not a fan of the race, but actually in terms of an immersive experience into what it's like being inside a Formula One team was pretty special for understanding all the different nuances of it. Really great. And hopefully we can give people a kind of feel and take them on that journey a little bit as well.
Where were you for the actual race? Where were you watching?
So engineering office, which is just in the garage, so just above the garage where the cars come in for the pits. But it was more pivotal than most races. We'll talk a bit more, but you hearing everything of all the crazy strategy that was going on. It was busy.
Because it was essentially a strategy race.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it became.
And so it was the perfect place to be to hear that all live out, just from one team's perspective.
Did you offer any thoughts? Just like tap them on the shoulder and go, how about...
Guys, I think you should pit now.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, there's a little microphone on the headset, so if I was to press a button, I could actually imagine that. I'm not sure I'd be invited back.
No, but what a way to go out.
Maybe the last race of the season.
And you spoke to Max Verstappen.
Yep.
Did a hot lap with Max Verstappen.
Two.
I'm so sorry.
Yep.
Two hot laps, which is mind-boggling.
Incredible.
And I look forward to. I think we're going to watch it together. In fact, I specifically haven't watched it yet, so I could watch it with you. I thought that'd be nice.
Lovely.
And I saw you chatting to Yuki on the boats.
Standard day at the office.
You're having a great time, and it's good for us as well. It is good for us.
I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, the experience we've got to have, and that people can see, very alternative chats. One hot lap chat with one driver, one back of a speedboat chat with another driver with a wakeboarder behind us. I still don't really know why that was happening. It was very Red Bull.
Yeah, so those hot laps with Max, you can see up on our socials and on YouTube. So if you aren't, not you, but everyone else should be following, and then they won't miss this stuff because it is good stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people have already watched it. So done some great numbers, but for those people who haven't, it is worth seeing just to see that different side of Max. It's a lovely insight into him.
Hello and welcome to The Inside Track, the Formula One podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the biggest stories in the sport with exclusive access to Red Bull racing. I'm broadcaster and Formula One fan Rick Edwards. I tend to watch races at home while spending time with my family.
And I'm sports journalist Matt Magenden. Rather than spend time with my lovely wife and children, I go gallivanting around the world to Grand Prix, hanging out with Max and Yuki, Christian Horner, race engineers, strategists, etc. Each week we bring all the latest F1 news, the backstage gossip, and find out who's thriving and who's under pressure.
And this season, we've got the inside track on Red Bull Racing as they fight to retain their standing as the fastest team on the grid. If you want to see all the action from us in the studio, there's not like masses of action in here, but from race day, where there is, subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Inside Track Podcast. Okay, let's just get straight into your lap or laps with Max.
Yep.
So, obvious point, it is not a Formula One car because there'd be nowhere for you to sit.
No,
unless you're sort of
that's very
on his lap, and even then, there's definitely not room.
Yeah, so it was arranged by Red Bull, the team, but also Ford, who's their engine partner for last year. So we were in a Ford Mustang Dark Horse, and so we're side by side, right hand drive for Max, just an incredible experience. The car. I can't remember what its top speed is, but I think Max said coming out the tunnel the second time round, we hit about 120 miles an hour. So you actually feel that speed and barriers approach you quite rapidly.
Probably feels quite slow to him, doesn't it?
It just seemed he had a lot of time to chat, to sort of turn to me while I'm
eyes on the road, Max, eyes on the road.
While I'm trying not to sort of headbutt him with my helmet as I can't stay in my seat. But an amazing experience.
That is one thing I'm slightly obsessed with is Formula One drivers' necks, and how much time they spend strengthening their necks so they're not just
look wider
sort of,
than their heads.
They do. They're sort of triangular.
Yeah,
it's a nice look. While you're sort of going like this.
You sound like you have seen the video.
Trying to get some questions out. Can we watch it now? You look, and I obviously mean this with love, like a man who doesn't have a skeleton. You're like a jelly man. You look at him absolutely rigid, just chatting away, completely fine, and then you're sort of flailing. You just
but having the time of my life at the same time.
Oh, you clearly enjoyed yourself. I'm just saying you look like you're an invertebrate.
He's quite generous in the description, but he said, because I spoke to him about that afterwards, off camera, and how, because he's got control of the braking, he knows when the braking point's coming. So actually, which I thought was a very generous take on it.
Yes.
Whereas I'm trying to not sort of headbutt him with my helmet. So we're going to come to a section in a minute where he's been told to slow down, and we get overtaken by somebody, which, as you can imagine, being Max Verstappen, doesn't go down very well.
Hey, yeah, we have to slow down. Okay, well, he did not. Okay. You told me to only go 50 here.
Not everyone listened to the briefing.
Yeah.
We could even do, should we do another one, since we've got, I think we had 3 laps to do in total.
Let's ask them, because I have no idea what's allowed.
So just to explain, we had 3 laps together. That was the amount of time. And the arrangement was we would ask some questions on lap 1, stationary. Lap 2, we'd go out flying. Lap 3, do some more questions. But I felt greedy, maybe. And it felt, let's do another one. I think he was enjoying it. And also, I don't think he'd gone full tilt at that point. And it meant he could come back to that 50 mile an hour zone and not obey the rules, essentially. So it looks like I'm desperately pleading for more time. And I am, frankly.
No, but as you should have done. That's completely the right
Because
decision.
actually the second lap is quicker and better, I think. Can we go round one more? Is there time for that?
Yeah, you can take your spare lap.
Yeah, I think
So I'll signal again and then the car controller will let you go again.
Yeah, is that all right?
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
He's going to go for a second lap.
Is that right, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. For me, it's fine.
Can you imagine that when that lady says he's going to go for a second lap, there's a lot of people off camera rolling their eyes. Of course he is.
It was always going to be F1. It was never going to be anything else for you.
Honestly,
as long as you remember.
I mean, you can. There's so many categories out there. Of course, the goal was Formula One, but even if that wouldn't have worked out, then just to do something else. And I love endurance racing as well, So.
By something else, he means race a different type of car.
That literally, it was racing, only racing. I didn't realise.
He couldn't even conceive that you might be asking him a question beyond cars.
It's moving nicely.
Yeah, it's nice. Have you driven this car before then?
Yes, I have.
Are you amping up your body movements here?
No. We're going that much faster second time round. Yeah. I'm looking more ludicrous with every corner.
Looser.
Looser,
much looser.
Is this the best place to do the hot lap then, Monaco?
I think so. Yeah. I think you chose the right one.
It's just the fact he doesn't respond to so good.
Yeah. He's
Nothing.
like, who's this guy next to me? What happens here, this is the fastest bit. As we're going
through
in
the
the tunnel,
tunnel.
through the tunnel, the corner of the back of the car slightly snaps out. I don't think you notice it on that, but there's just a little feel to it, but he writes it immediately.
Keeping your concentration up. And also that qualifying is super important, So
Take care.
you're welcome.
Best possible payoff as soon as you get out of the car. That's what I wanted to see. Just holding it in.
That would have been good. I didn't feel sick, actually. Some people feel horribly sick, apparently. They said in the briefing beforehand, some people feel really, really sick.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. If you're not subscribed, come on, you're missing out on this great content. There are a lot of comments on the YouTube video. People are saying, firstly, what a nice guy Max seems. People also being nice about you. So, and then someone, Johan B7869, said, this was so much better than the race yesterday. Lol. And I am inclined to agree.
But you're mostly for the laughing at my head. That is your favourite part of it, or?
Yes, I enjoyed the fluidity of your movements. I did. And it's very sweet that you chose to have a second lap as well.
I know, it's just kid in a sweet shop.
The journalist in you completely deserted the scene. And the kid was like, well, no, we're going to have another lovely fast lap.
But you must have noticed my hard-hitting questions as well during the 2 laps.
Yeah, they weren't your most incisive, I would say.
It's quite hard to concentrate.
No, that's not aggressive. I think I'm amazed you said anything other than so good, so good.
I did that a couple of times, didn't I?
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
I don't think anyone ever looks or sounds good in a passenger seat on a hot laps thing when I've seen them before. And I
think that's
certainly fall
probably
into
true.
that category. Yeah,
I think that's probably true, yeah. I guess it's just nice to spend a bit of time with Max when he seems quite sort of relaxed and happy.
I mean, particularly it helped because it's his home race. In theory, he could walk to and from his house, but that's not going to happen. But just being able to go back to his partner and his new baby and stuff like that, I think really helped. Less so the fact this track was never going to be brilliant for them with the slow corners. So that made it difficult. But I think he came away from the weekend, 4th place, round about the best they could have hoped for. Maybe 3rd would have been possible at the start of the weekend. But yeah, it's just nice to see the flick of that switch. I think people within the team want people to see the truer Max, and I felt like that was, got a real sort of insight of that just in that clip.
Okay, let's have a look at our Monaco race prediction. So a reminder then, we predict who's going to come first, second and third, point for each of the drivers who make up the top 3, so 3 points there. And then if we get the order exactly right, we get 6 points. No one has done it yet.
And then we get a 5-minute explainer the week after for your choices as well.
That's exactly right. Although this time, I think slightly less so. Yeah. I've got quite a lot to say about AI's prediction.
Yeah. I don't think you've got anything.
Always. Yeah. And we're not only competing against each other, we're competing against the blooming AI and you, the listeners and viewers. You can submit your predictions by checking out our Instagram stories. Just search @theinsidetrack_podcast. And each week we pick one prediction to represent the audience. We are prepared, I think, to take a prediction from a YouTube comment as well to mix things up. So wherever you like. Now, I was quite harsh on AI because AI had predicted that Charles Leclerc was going to win in a Ferrari, which seemed completely outlandish. And coming into the sort of the week, all they were saying was our car is awful. It's going to be miserable. We haven't got a chance. Like they could not have talked it down more. And the whole time I was like, ha ha, AI. And then when they started, I was like, well, hold on. This is mad. Like
Charles Leclerc very nearly got it on pole. He only just got
so close,
pipped by Lando.
And I was trying to figure out how much of that then is just pure mind games. And how much would he genuinely have been surprised by the pace that the Ferrari was
I think being
offering?
In the press room, in the media centre there, spent quite a lot of the weekend there, I think people were surprised how good, both Ferraris looked good and competitive. Yeah,
at one point it looked like, yes, he might get pole.
And AI might be correct.
And I think I might have had to retire from the show and you'd just be sitting here opposite a computer.
Just AI speaking to me.
Doing its voice, yeah. So AI had predicted Charles Leclerc first, Lando Norris second, Max in third. So it gets 2 points.
Yep.
I think I described AI as an idiot. I don't take it back, but I don't... It does freak me out slightly that it had... Like it was close.
Because it was going on all the data it has, and the data is Charles Leclerc always qualifies well there, won last year's race. So it's taking, rather than the sensibilities of the season, it's taking that past stuff, I assume.
This week's audience prediction came from Mr. W.M. Smith, and he had, first colour sights.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it is a bit wow. Second Piastri, third Leclerc. So that is 2 points. I had Norris first, pardon me, Piastri second, Verstappen third. So I get 2. Sort of reasonably pleased with that. Yeah. Fine. You had Piastri first, Verstappen second, Norris third. You also get 2 points, even though my prediction is quite a lot better than yours. That's frustrating. So
I've had this before.
Yeah, I know you have.
It seems unfair.
So current standings, audience on 14, me and my nemesis, the AI, on 15. You still way out on 18 points. Okay, so let's talk about the race then in Monaco. We'll focus on the Red Bulls later on in the show. First question. Why do so many drivers live in Monaco?
What would your guess be?
Well, tax would be my immediate guess. But is there more to it
than that? So I think that probably is the primary one. But also it's a very good, it's a lovely part of the world to live in, but it's a good training spot. So a lot of them are cyclists, so they can immediately cycle off into the hills, etc. But also because it's the land of the rich and famous. Being rich and famous yourself, you can go fairly unnoticed.
Yes, okay.
And so Max alluded to, and the other drivers have talked about, they can actually walk around, drive around
Not
fairly
get
innocuously,
hassled.
which if they were in London or wherever else it would, another capital city, it wouldn't be possible. So there's a bit more to it. But yeah, financial, I would say, would be the primary one.
Yes. The race itself, I mean, I watched it and I was engaged by it.
Because of the intrigue.
But without necessarily enjoying it,
Yeah.
if that makes some sense. Because it was like...
It added a curiosity, didn't it, with all the strategy? You didn't know what was at play, and so that was a different dynamic, certainly.
Yeah, and I guess, for a one-off, fine, I suppose. But I still would rather see some overtaking. And also, it's quite notable that the drivers, I don't think any of them enjoyed it particularly.
I think there was a lot of frustrated drivers. We'll talk about it in a bit, but how they're backed up. You just stuck there. Some people just saying it was just boring. Just at points when they're driving, there's nothing you can do. You're essentially trapped in your position.
Yeah.
You just need to. But it can't be that dull because the barriers come up to you pretty close and pretty quick still.
But if you're going slower than you want to, and that just emphasises how hard it is to pass, because someone can just go drive slowly. And you can't get past. Yeah, the 2-stop thing. Well, not 2-stop, 3 tyres.
Yep.
I guess good to try it out of interest. I don't think it really worked because you had this frustration of the way that people sort of gamed that was quite actually really good example. So what Red Bull were waiting for at the end, where Max was out in front and knowing he had to pit, was a red flag. And if there had been a red flag, you would sort of gone, fair play, but also quite annoying for everyone except Red Bull.
Yeah, it doesn't feel deserving, I guess, in that sense. But that's literally, you could see what their ploy was. Go pit as late as you can, and that's your only thing. Hope that either there's a red car or maybe Norris and Leclerc somehow have a coming together, but none of that happened. But I think in some way, it was interesting to see because Formula One, they're all about doing everything they can to win, and so everyone was doing these different things, and so I found the intrigue, enough to keep me engaged, but not season upon season necessarily.
Yeah, also because you were there. Hearing it live, I imagine that was fascinating.
Yeah, so I need to try and people to visualise. So you'll see on the pictures these very tight garages in the pit lane for Monaco. They're all crammed in, and so you've got the garage, which there's barely any space in at the bottom, and the floor above. There's the pit wall. So normally that would be out on the track itself, but there, Christian Horner, team principal and CEO, Will Courtney, head of strategy at the team. Pierre Vacher, who's the technical director of the team, like the technical whiz who took over from Adrian Newey. Those guys are sitting there, and then the floor above is this little VIP area where who was there? Patrick Dempsey, the actor, was there.
Oh yeah.
The drummer from Muse, whose name escapes me, Patrice Evra, and then a couple of very wealthy-looking people.
Patrice Evra, surely.
No,
different people.
Wow, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah,
he's a guest drummer maybe. And then next door to that room, so it made it quite odd.
If I could name a single drummer. Oh, Dave Grohl, that's about it, isn't it? The drummer from Muse, I'd never get that.
I can't remember his name anyway.
Not Matt Bellamy. Matt Bellamy's mate.
I did recognise him anyway. And in the neighbouring room to that was this engineering office where there's a bunch of desks set up, screens with all the telemetry, etc. And you've got some of the engineers in there, and they're feeding little bits of information. So I've got this headset on the whole way through, and I'm tuned into everything. So you can hear the drivers, what they're saying throughout the race. You can hear the engineers, their race engineers. You have Will Courtney, who I mentioned, talking about head of strategy. He was busy. And then Hannah Schmidt's back in the factory feeding some other info. Then you had Christian Horner, Pierre Vacher. Now, I've experienced the engineering office before and listening to a race, but never like this. And it'd be quite good to talk about some of the things you were hearing on there, because they already knew they were going to pit Yuki at the start, immaterial of Bortoletto going into Barry. That was always the plan. So the plan was, so you knew that. But then there's a bit at the start where Lando screeches the tyres a bit, and Paul Monaghan, who I think has the best nickname, Pedals, we've talked about him before, he's the chief engineer. He's then looking at footage to see if there's any problems, any flat spots on Norris's tyre, in the hope they can gain an advantage there. So there's a bit of chat of that. Turns out not enough's done. And then there was an interesting point where they felt that Piastri was brake testing Verstappen a couple of times. So they report it like going to the head teacher. They report it to the stewards to say they thought it was happening, and then it turns out
he's being mean to our boy.
Yeah, but no, it turns out I don't think anyone ever replied to it. So you get a fair sense there's no case to be heard. They're clearly getting there. But what was interesting is they're all about trying to improve their position. So they were fourth the whole way through, but they had two options where they were looking to possibly undercut Piastri. So Piastri comes in around, I don't know, lap 24, something like that, about a third of the way through the race. And again at 49, about that time, 2/3 into the race. Now, what happens when he comes out, Max has then got a bit of clear track, so he's trying to hoon it around as fast as he can to make up some time. And for a point, he's ahead. He's 0.4 seconds ahead of Piastri because Piastri's tyres haven't quite come in. So you've got this constant conversation of what we're going to do. This happens twice. We can't miss this opportunity. But the pit stop had to be absolutely perfect, 2.5 seconds to come out, and they didn't make the call. And you've got GP, who's Max's engineer, sort of getting a bit feisty about it, saying we need to do it. Will Courtney, coolest man in the room, no, stick with it. And he was right. I think when they talked about it after the race, that in either situation, they would have just come out side by side. They didn't think they were going to make a gain. But there was just that slight moment where they felt they could do it until Piastri's tyres came in. They just took a couple of laps to properly get good on the circuit again. But I really liked that. And then at the end, you'd have different dynamics. At the end, GP just said, "That's sad." And they missed the opportunity. So there was also there was sort of humour within it. There was quite a nice, quite frank remark from Pierre Vacher. They're all talking about Yuki and what he's doing at the back there. And Pierre, you just hear this French voice come over and goes, "Yes, he's just slow." Just frustrated. I don't think it was necessarily criticism, but he's just stuck in this thing. He just can't do anything. Yeah. So you really felt this frustration. And there was another interesting dynamic where their only other throw of the dice was when Max was leading for that period. It was a false lead, obviously, because he still had to pit again, talking about backing up both Norris and Leclerc to somehow create a ding-dong battle, so maybe they could have a coming together. And
it looked like he was doing that a little bit.
But every time he did it, then Norris would drop off a little bit. They knew what they were doing. And I found that bit fascinating. And you could sense a sort of bit of an excitement that something might happen there, and then it didn't happen. There was no eventuality, and it was the race. And watching on the sofa, you wouldn't have known all this, but it was amazing how much dialogue happened through the race.
Lando Norris, I think, will be thrilled. Absolutely thrilled.
Back on form, wasn't he? He really had a great weekend.
Just feels that you've had that little momentum.
Yeah, it felt like
shift.
It was coming.
And Piastri, was a bit off it. Yeah. I've been saying he's going to have an off weekend
wasn't that off a weekend?
No, it wasn't. Exactly. If he come third on an off weekend, that's good.
Yeah, it didn't quite click for him.
No, it's not. He didn't look as quick as Lando. Quite a few drivers did not enjoy it and were very sort of open about how much they didn't enjoy it. I mean, Mercedes had another shocking.
Well, but the moment they had the issue with Antonelli in Q1, Russell in Q2, I think it was that way around. They knew they were done for, and they had to play something, and they just fell into that RB backing up, then Williams backing up, and then they were just stuck.
Yeah, and Alonso in the last race at Imola said he thought he was the unluckiest man in the world. This time round, it looked like he was going to get his first points of the season, and then didn't.
He's had a crash. He's had brake issues. Now the power unit. He's
building a case.
He can be a bit dramatic, but I'm beginning to see his argument here. Yeah.
I think by saying he's the unluckiest man in the world, he's tempted fate now.
Yeah. He needs a good weekend. It seemed like it's been coming together the last two weekends, but still. Nil point for him, sadly.
There was a nice moment, I don't know if you will have heard this actually, where Lewis Hamilton, who had a sort of, I guess, fine weekend on the whole, said to his guy, are you upset with me? And then no one replied.
No, I missed that.
Absolutely.
Just silence.
Yeah, just silence.
Tumbleweed over the race radio.
And I don't know if you've ever, for example, asked your wife, are you upset with me? If she doesn't reply, that is the clearest possible answer. I do think I find the Hamilton radio stuff really fascinating because it's still not quite.
Even when they say nothing, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Now, as you know, and as I've been very open about, I don't like the race. I just don't. And qualifying was great and really exciting. Really everything, the setting, the whole shebang apart from the race is excellent and then the race not for me. I think I probably like it more than George Russell, though, who really, I mean, he was saying, well, why don't you just get rid of the race and just have another qualifier? Sounds like a terrible idea, but also quite a good idea. And then he was saying, what about if you could have a button that you press to set off sprinklers? This is a guy who's had enough.
Yeah, I really liked it. He was just throwing any idea out there to mix it up.
Yeah,
because the point is, when it rains, it is actually an interesting dynamic there. That things become different, and so that's what he was just saying. But the sense of that sort of wacky races type philosophy for Monaco.
Well, he's like the driver. What's his sort of title? Driver rep?
Yeah,
or like
he is for the
King of the Drivers or something.
I can't remember the official title, but yes, he's one of their main representatives that sort of feed back to Formula One, the FIA, and complains about stuff. So I'd love to see his manifesto for Monaco.
Really, really hope he takes a sprinkler idea to the FIA.
Can you imagine that? Quite like to see it, just anything, just try something different. That was his exasperation, just something.
And I think that Max said it was like Mario Kart. And I don't quite know what he meant by that.
Wow, if you could fire off one of those turtles that goes and blasts, that would be another dynamic.
Well, listen, there's all sorts you could do. We need to get. I don't know if we can organise a meeting with the FIA. I feel like we probably can't at this stage.
Season 2, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, next up we're going to focus on Red Bull, and we will be up to our little eyeballs in your excellent access, Matt. We've got a Yuki Tsunoda and a Christian Horner interview coming up, and if you remember last week, I was calling you a piggy. I would say that the piggy has brought home the truffles. Do you want to do the sound?
I can't. I'm blocked up, actually, unfortunately.
That's a real shame.
Yeah.
So how did Red Bull feel about the whole weekend?
It was quite a positive feel to the team. Christian left with his kids and looked in positive mood. I think they were on half term, but there was a sense maybe they could have got third, but fourth wasn't terrible. Yuki was undone by where he qualified and then the backing up on things. But they went into that weekend knowing with the slow corners that was not to the liking of their car.
And you sat down with Christian and asked him about the two-stop race and whether it had kind of gone how he thought it would.
Well, I felt that it's, certainly if you compare the race to last year where there was no stops and it was certainly a procession, this year there was more jeopardy to it. There was a different dynamic. We rolled the dice. We knew you wouldn't be able to overtake on track. So our strategy was always based on a safety car or VSC or red flag, and fourth was the best we could manage today.
I guess you're hoping either a red flag or Charles and Lando coming together, I guess, was the only...
Well, that was the only way that we were going to bet of P4 today. So, we hung out there. Max on the medium tyre did an incredible stint. Yuki basically did the whole race on one set of tyres. So, yeah, it worked well.
Do you want to have further changes here at Monaco, or...?
Monaco is an iconic track and we all want to be here. And I think the two-stop definitely worked, but it'd be great to investigate, is there a way that we can make an overtaking space here?
I know I go on about this, but it is so crazy that you have one of the bosses just saying completely calmly, well, we knew you wouldn't be able to overtake on track. You cannot excuse it. It's the whole point of the sport.
But he also says it's not going anywhere, I think.
No, I know it isn't. I know it isn't.
Just got to accept it. If somehow they can come up with some, just slightly changing a couple of parts of it, if there is the option for that, just so it gives something, because there's not been a lot of change. There was a few years ago, there was one bit of a ding-dong race, but generally there's very, very few overtakes in the race.
But he sounded sort of pretty upbeat, fairly happy with things, and not. I wondered if they would be annoyed with Yuki, maybe qualifying wise, but nothing he could do about getting jammed up like that.
Yeah, I think they would have liked better from him in qualifying, but then once the race came in, they tried something which could have worked with what they did. It was a possible play, but then by then him being backed up, as we said, that was sort of game over for him.
So we're about to play a clip of your chat with Yuki, which was curiously on a boat.
Yeah, it was talking of surreal experiences from the weekend. It was another one. So we took a speedboat from the energy station, which was the team's kind of hospitality area for the weekend, over to the hotel across the harbour where he was staying. And basically, being Monaco, the easier way to travel is boat. Like the roads are crammed.
Or wakeboard.
Wakeboard. That's another way to go. So yes, obviously that's his route commute to the office, and it's a pretty nice commute to the office.
It's decent, yeah.
we picked up him and his parents who were there for the race. And so his poor parents and everyone else got bundled to the front of the boat. Everyone squeezed to the boat with me and him sitting in the back so we can have a little chat as we're going slowly initially and then a little faster. And then as a surprise, hiding in the front of the boat is a Red Bull wakeboarder who cuts through our interview unbeknown to Yuki. Hey, and starts wakeboarding out the back. And he was going to do a few stunts, but it was so choppy with all the boats in the water, he couldn't do some of the things. But there was a very funny bit in that, I don't know, it was a slight lost in translation moment where Yuki thinks he is also going wakeboarding, because it turns out, I think unbeknown a bit to the team, that he's a fan of wakeboarding. Do you have some board shorts for me? And then suddenly he's like, are there sharks? I'm afraid of sharks. That's like, this is absolutely mental. So that's the backdrop to the clip. The clip we're going to hear.
I don't know what reaction they're expecting a sort of surprise wakeboarder to generate.
He loved it. He absolutely loved it.
Good.
Yeah, he absolutely loved it. And then he got, because it turns out he's done some wakeboarding near where he lives in Italy.
Yeah.
There's a sort of wakeboarding park or whatever you call it there, and he'd already mastered a front flip, and this guy was talking to Nick Gers about how to do a backflip and other tricks, and I think they were going to get together. So actually it worked out brilliantly.
And this was just in the middle of your interview.
Yes, but it was all planned.
Perfect.
It's very Red Bull. They do these crazy stunts all the time.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed quintessentially Red Bull in that moment that, of course, there would be a wakeboarder coming across our interview to perform some stunts.
I can't wait until they send someone like a juggler in here.
Surprise! No. And then understandably, because of what happened the weekend before with that crash, he ended up upside down, flipping into the barriers. We had a chat about that.
Yeah, I was a bit unlucky that I had a bit of a jump just before I hit the barrier. I think that made it slightly worse. But yeah, it wasn't always the finest moments, and I mean, I made a huge impact, and made so much backstep for the mechanics and to overnight to repair the cars and everything. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel really bad, and I think it was one of the worst, I would say, experience I have probably in my career. So I just wanted to really bounce back strong.
Can I ask, when a crash like that happens, does it go into slow motion? What goes through your mind in that moment? Because I mean, it's so fast when we watch it, but does it all break down in time, or?
Good question. The amount of speed I went to the barrier was quite fast, so I feel like, oh, this is gonna hurt. Just before I hit the barrier, it's a barrier that you have kind of sponge, right? It's like a proper FIA protective barrier, so it's not like a wall. So I knew it won't hurt as much, but actually a few seconds later I was in the upside down, and I'm like, well, what's going on? And like, I shouldn't be like this big, but okay.
Fairly relaxed about the crash, it turns out.
I love hearing him talk about that. I find it really interesting. But we talked, I think, last week about how amazing it was that he just dusted himself off and was fine and had actually a great race. But it's interesting hearing them talk about that, a driver talk about that moment.
I suppose that through their careers, coming up through karting, which pretty much all of them, they will have just had a load of crashes. Not like that over the course.
Yeah, they're good at bracing. They always take their hands off the steering wheel because they know you can damage yourself quite badly. And I think they relax the body, which
You'd
I don't
be
know how
good.
you do.
You'd be fantastic
I'm
at it.
not sure my weak neck.
The ragdoll.
the neck would not hold together very well.
Well, it's nice to have a joke about a crash, isn't it? If you want to see Matt and Yuki travelling in style, check out our socials. Team sort of, a bit disappointed with 17th, but not much after qualifying. Not a great deal to be done.
Yeah, they tried their plan. It didn't work in that instance. Their strategy, it could have worked. It could have been a masterstroke. I
liked it as it happened. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
It was funny because you knew before the race. I didn't know that was their strategy. I hadn't had that conversation beforehand, but they knew there were going to be some first lap stoppers, or the possibility was there. So yeah, good fun.
And how was he as an interviewee?
Oh, he's just such a likable personality. He's, what the character you sort of see on TV, it's the same, just a very likable personality. He's got good energy, nice to talk to. I mean, I would love to pick his brains for a longer interview, but as a first, Well, actually, we chatted before, but as a lengthier sit down, being on the back of the speedboat's not a terrible way to do it. But hopefully, yeah, we'll have some more time, and people listening will get to know him more like we will.
What mode of transport next, do you imagine? Hang gliding with Yuki?
Might just be on foot. I'd quite like to do that. Sometimes the drivers walk the track at a Formula One circuit. I'd quite like to be able to do that.
Yeah,
they either go on
bikes
bikes or on a scooter or something like that. I don't know if that's possible.
Scooter.
If I say it out loud on the air, then maybe Red Bull will make it happen.
Yeah, scooter. I just always think of Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah,
loves a scooter.
And Toto. I think of Toto Wolff.
Yeah, Toto a scooter as well. Yeah, two big scooter guys. Okay, so next race is Sunday, Barcelona. We will see some overtaking. So I'm already happy about that.
Yeah, there's going to be more passing manoeuvres than there was last weekend. And also there's a bit of uncertainty going into the weekend. It's interesting. There's a new technical directive around the flexing of the front wings. And so that rule changes for this race.
Are they feeling optimistic about these changes?
I spoke to Christian Horner, obviously, after the race, and it's a bit of unknown. So they don't entirely know what difference it's going to make because they don't know what impact it's having on other teams, the change of that. So they know their position. They feel pretty positive they're going in the right direction. What they see, their data, that it should be a positive step forward. They don't know what's happening with McLaren in particular, Ferrari, Mercedes, etc. But I don't think it's necessarily the silver bullet panacea that everyone thinks it is. But it just adds a new intrigue in that we don't know if it's going to shake up the grid, what it's going to entail, whether we'll see an immediate difference here or whether it'll be 2 to 3 races that we see a difference. But it just makes for a more fascinating build-up because everyone's sort of hoping that maybe we'll see a different dynamic on track.
Where are you going to be watching?
So I'll be at the race with the team again.
You're having a decent run of it.
Yeah, so it should be good. And I think I'll go into the engineering office again because of there be that technical aspect to try and understand what difference that's making, if any, to the team and to the rest of the grid.
Right then, prediction time. The AI has responded to me, apparently. So it says, I hear that you hate me, Rick.
Whoa, what about the voice?
Well, to be fair, it's not that I don't hate you because you are not a sentient being. I don't like you.
Yeah.
You will next season when I take your job. Human broadcasters will soon be obsolete. That's probably true. Matt, you're fine. We need your Red Bull access.
Getting on well with AI.
My sense is that producer Nick is writing this stuff, not the AI. But yeah, a little look forward to season 2 of this show. I'm but a distant memory. It thinks Piastri's going to be back on top.
Right.
It's got Verstappen second, Norris third. Annoyingly, I think I've got the same drivers, but in a different order. So I've got Lando. I think he's on a nice trajectory at the moment, and I think, assuming he has a good qualifying, I'm going Lando first, Piastri I think second, Verstappen third.
Right, I think we might get a 6-pointer this weekend because I'm going to go for the same three, but again, just to be different, a different order.
Imagine if
I'm going to go.
If AI gets it,
I'm going to go Max for the win.
Just to
be a bit different.
Yeah.
Lando for second. I feel like he's on a good run, and Oscar Piastri for third. So we're all same but different.
As you know by now, you can follow the show on Instagram and TikTok and watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to us while you're there. Links are in the podcast show notes. And send in your predictions for the next race. Who's going to make the podium? Give us your 1, 2, 3. You can do that by checking out our Instagram stories or just leave a comment on YouTube. Links in the show notes. You can also send in any questions or thoughts about the show. Our email address is theinsidetrack@bbc.com. We'll see you at the same time next week for a full Spanish Grand Prix review and to look forward to Matt's next trick. Can he beat a lap with Max? I'm going to say that's going to be quite hard.
Yeah, I haven't got anything quite so dramatic this time around, but there'll still be some interesting insights.
There'll still be some stuff.
Yeah.
You'll get us some stuff. The Inside Track is funded and made by BBC Studios, a commercial company that is wholly owned by the BBC. It's produced by Nick Thompson. Video editing and social media is by Georgina Revel. James Cook is the executive producer.